Jesse's sobs echo through the cabin as Silas pins him against the wall. "Please," Jesse gasps, trembling. "It's too much. I can't." Silas's grip tightens, voice rough with intensity. "You can take this. Crying won't make me stop." Sometimes what breaks you down builds you back up. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The dust never settled in Redemption Valley. It hung in the air like guilt, coating everything in a fine red powder that made the whole world look like it was bleeding. That's what Silas Drummond thought as he stood in the doorway of the Bighorn Ranch stable, watching the new hand stumble through his first day of mucking stalls. The boy couldn't have been more than 19, maybe 20. Rail thin, with hands that had never known real work until desperation brought him here. His name was Jesse Fairmont, and he'd arrived 3 days ago with nothing but a worn satchel and eyes that couldn't quite meet anyone's gaze. Silas had seen that look before, the look of someone running from something, or someone. At 6'5" and built like the mountains that ringed the valley, Silas knew the effect his presence had on people. Most folks gave him a wide berth, and he preferred it that way. 15 years of ranch work had carved his body into something formidable, all hard muscle and sun-darkened skin. His hands could break a man's jaw or gentle a spooked horse with equal ease. He'd learned young that size made people afraid, and fear, well, fear kept them at a distance, which was exactly where Silas wanted everyone. Except now, there was Jesse, struggling with a pitchfork that seemed too heavy for his slight frame, his shirt already soaked through with sweat despite the early hour. The boy had been given the worst job on the ranch, the one nobody wanted, cleaning out the stalls of the temperamental stallions in the back barn. Silas had watched him all morning from the shadow of the feed room, telling himself he was just making sure the new hand didn't get himself killed. That's what he told himself anyway. But there was something about the way Jesse moved, careful and precise despite his obvious exhaustion, that kept drawing Silas's attention back. The sun was high and merciless when Jesse finally stumbled out of the last stall, his face flushed and streaked with dirt. He didn't see Silas standing there, just braced himself against the barn wall, chest heaving like he'd run 10 miles instead of spending the morning with a shovel. That's when Silas noticed the tremor in the boy's hands. Not from exertion, from something else, something deeper. "You're doing it wrong," Silas said, his voice coming out rougher than he'd intended. Jesse jerked upright so fast he nearly fell, those wide green eyes finally meeting Silas's gaze for just a heartbeat before skittering away. I'm sorry, sir. I'll work faster. I just need..." "Didn't say anything about faster?" Silas stepped out of the shadows, and he didn't miss the way Jesse's breath caught, the way the boy seemed to fold in on himself. "Said you're doing it wrong. You'll break your back by week's end, working like that." The afternoon heat pressed down on them both, thick and suffocating. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed, and the windmill creaked its eternal song. But in the barn, there was only silence and the sound of Jesse's shallow breathing. "I can show you," Silas heard himself say. "The right way." Jesse's throat worked as he swallowed, still not looking up. "I don't want to be any trouble, Mr. Drummond. I can figure it out." "Silas," he corrected, surprised at himself. He didn't let anyone call him by his first name. "And you won't figure it out. Not before you hurt yourself." Something flickered across Jesse's face then. Not quite fear, but close to it. A wariness that made Silas's chest tighten with an unfamiliar ache. The boy had been hurt before. That much was clear. Hurt bad enough that kindness looked like a trap. Silas knew that feeling too. "Tomorrow morning," Silas said, keeping his voice level, "before the heat sets in. I'll teach you proper." He turned to leave before Jesse could refuse, but the boy's voice stopped him. "Why?" The question hung in the dusty air between them. Silas looked back over his shoulder, and for just a moment, their eyes met and held. Jesse's were the color of spring grass, bright against his sun-reddened face. Something electric passed between them, quick as lightning and twice as dangerous. "Because," Silas said slowly, "I don't like watching people struggle when I can help." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was all he could give. The days that followed fell into a pattern. Silas would appear at dawn, teaching Jesse the proper way to work without destroying his body. And Jesse, wary but desperate, would listen. They didn't talk much. Silas wasn't one for idle conversation, and Jesse seemed too afraid of saying the wrong thing to speak unless spoken to. But Silas noticed things. Everything, really. The way Jesse's hands trembled when he thought no one was watching. How he ate his meals alone, sitting apart from the other hands. The way his eyes would dart to the gate at every unexpected sound, like he was always planning his next escape route. Silas noticed the bruises too, old ones, faded to yellow-green, that peeked out from under Jesse's collar. New ones that appeared after Jesse spent time in town getting supplies, though he always had some explanation. Tripped over a fence post, horse spooked and knocked him into a stall. Clumsy, that's all. But Silas knew the shape of violence, knew the difference between accident and intent, and those bruises had intent written all over them. He also noticed how the other ranch hands looked at Jesse. Most just ignored him, but a few, like Cobb, watched him with something ugly in their eyes. Suspicion mixed with contempt, like they could smell something different about Jesse and it made them want to hurt him. Silas made it his business to always be nearby during those times. Just his presence was usually enough to keep the ugliness at bay. Most men thought twice about starting trouble when Silas Drummond was watching. On the 10th day, Jesse finally spoke first. They were repairing a section of fence together, working in the comfortable silence that had developed between them. Jesse was getting stronger, his movements more confident. The trembling in his hands had eased, though it never quite disappeared. "Why are you being kind to me?" Jesse asked suddenly, not looking up from the post he was driving into the ground. Silas paused, hammer in hand. "Why wouldn't I be? Most people aren't. Kind, I mean." Jesse's voice was soft, almost lost in the prairie wind. "Not without wanting something." The words hit Silas square in the chest. "I don't want anything from you that you're not willing to give." Jesse looked up at that, green eyes searching Silas's face. "Everyone wants something." "Maybe." Silas set down the hammer and moved closer. "But I'm patient, and I don't take what isn't offered freely." Something flickered across Jesse's face. Fear, yes, but underneath it, something else. Something that looked like desperate hope. "I don't understand you," Jesse whispered. "You don't have to understand me," Silas said. "You just have to trust that I mean what I say." Jesse's eyes filled with tears, and he looked away quickly, scrubbing at them with the back of his hand. Trust is dangerous. So is living without it. Silas wanted to reach out to offer comfort, but he held himself back. Jesse wasn't ready for that yet. "But I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need." That night, Silas lay awake in his bunk, thinking about Jesse, about the careful way he moved through the world, like he expected it to hurt him at any moment, about the bruises and the fear and the way Jesse looked at him sometimes, like Silas was something precious and terrifying all at once. Silas had told himself he was just helping someone in need, being a decent human being, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward Jesse. The way his day felt incomplete if he didn't see those green eyes, the fierce protectiveness that surged through him whenever someone looked at Jesse wrong. He was in trouble, deep trouble, because wanting someone who'd been hurt as badly as Jesse had been was a recipe for disaster. One wrong move, one moment of impatience, and he could shatter whatever fragile trust they were building. But Silas couldn't stop himself from wanting anyway. The breaking point came 2 weeks after Jesse's arrival. Silas had gone into town for supplies, and when he returned, he found Jesse curled up behind the hay bales in the back of the barn, his whole body shaking. "Jesse?" Silas dropped the supply sacks and crossed to him quickly. "What happened?" Jesse didn't answer, just pressed himself further into the corner. In the dim light, Silas could see fresh bruises blooming on Jesse's jaw, a split lip bleeding slowly. Rage, white-hot and consuming, flooded through Silas. "Who did this to you?" "Doesn't matter," Jesse whispered. "I'm used to it. It matters to me." Silas forced himself to calm down, to gentle his voice. "Tell me who hurt you." Jesse shook his head. "They'll just do it again if I tell. Or worse. Not if I have anything to say about it." Silas crouched down, bringing himself to Jesse's level. "Please, let me help you." Jesse's eyes met his, and Silas saw something break in them. "Why? Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. Nothing. Just another drifter who'll be gone in a month. You're not nothing." The words came out fierce, almost angry. "And you're not nobody. You're—" Silas stopped, unsure how to finish. "You're everything I've been looking for. You're the reason I wake up in the morning. You're mine, even if you don't know it yet." "I'm what?" Jesse asked, his voice barely audible. "You're someone who deserves better than this." Silas reached out slowly, giving Jesse time to pull away, and gently touched the bruise on his jaw. "Someone who deserves kindness, safety, to be treated like you matter." Jesse's breath hitched, and suddenly he was crying. Not quiet tears, but wrenching sobs that shook his whole frame. Silas gathered him into his arms without thinking, pulling Jesse against his chest and holding him while he fell apart. "I'm sorry," Jesse gasped between sobs. "I'm sorry, I'm such a mess. I shouldn't—" Silas's hand moved in soothing circles on Jesse's back. "You have nothing to apologize for." "Nothing." Jesse clung to him like a drowning man, his fingers digging into Silas's shirt, and Silas held him, murmuring wordless comfort, while Jesse cried out what might have been months or years of pain. When the storm finally passed, Jesse pulled back, his face red and blotchy, his eyes swollen. "I got your shirt all wet." "I don't care about the shirt." Silas cupped Jesse's face gently, his thumbs wiping away the last of the tears. "Tell me what happened. Who hurt you?" Jesse took a shaky breath. "Cobb and two of his friends. They cornered me in town, said things, ugly things. When I tried to walk away, they—" His voice broke. "They wanted to teach me a lesson about my place." Silas's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "What kind of things did they say?" Jesse looked away, shame coloring his cheeks. "Things about what they thought I was, what they thought I wanted. They said—" He stopped, unable to continue. "You don't have to tell me," Silas said, though fury burned in his chest. "But I need you to know something. Whatever they said, whatever they think they know about you, it doesn't change how I see you." Jesse's eyes snapped to his. "You don't know what they said." "I can guess." Silas held his gaze steadily. "And it doesn't matter, because they're wrong about one thing." "What's that?" "Your place. Your place isn't beneath anyone. Your place is wherever you choose to be. And right now, I'm hoping you choose to be here, with me." Jesse stared at him, his breath coming fast and shallow. "Silas, I don't think you understand what you're saying. If they're right about me, if I am what they think, then you'd be like me." Silas let the words hang in the air between them. "And I'd understand exactly what you're going through, because I've been where you are, Jesse, running from people who think they have the right to tell you who you are, who you're allowed to love." Jesse's eyes went wide. "You. I'm like you," Silas said again, making it clear. "And I'm telling you that you're safe with me, that whatever you are, whatever you want, I understand, and I won't judge you for it." The confession settled between them like a stone dropped in still water, ripples spreading outward. Jesse's whole body was trembling now, but not from fear, from something else, something that looked like relief so profound it was almost painful. "I thought I was alone," Jesse whispered. "I thought I was the only one who felt this way, who wanted—" He stopped, swallowing hard. "I've never met anyone else like me." "Now you have." Silas's hands were still cradling Jesse's face, his touch gentle despite the emotions churning inside him. "And you don't have to be alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be." Jesse's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in." Every time I've tried, every time I've trusted someone, it's ended with pain. I know. Silas's voice was rough with emotion. I know it's terrifying, but I'm asking you to try anyway, to give me a chance to prove that not everyone will hurt you. Jesse searched his face for a long moment, and Silas let himself be seen. Let Jesse look past all his defenses to the truth underneath. That he was just as scared as Jesse, just as desperate for connection, just as tired of being alone. Okay, Jesse finally whispered. Okay, I'll try. Silas felt something in his chest expand, warm and almost painful. That's all I'm asking. They stayed like that for a while, Jesse leaning against Silas's chest, Silas's arms wrapped protectively around him. Outside, the ranch continued its evening routine. Cattle lowing, horses settling, men heading to the bunkhouse for supper. But in the barn, time seemed to stop. What do we do now? Jesse asked eventually. Now? Silas pressed a kiss to the top of Jesse's head, unable to stop himself. Now I'm going to have a conversation with Cobb and his friends, and you're going to let me. Jesse pulled back, alarmed. No, that'll just make it worse. It won't. Silas's voice was firm. Because they're going to understand that if they touch you again, they'll have to deal with me, and nobody on this ranch is stupid enough to want that. Jesse bit his lip, clearly torn. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. You let me worry about that. Silas stood, pulling Jesse up with him. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. He led Jesse to the well, gently washing the blood from his split lip and checking the bruises on his jaw. Jesse stood still under his ministrations, his eyes never leaving Silas's face. You're being so gentle, Jesse said softly, like I'm something precious. You are precious. Silas's hand stilled on Jesse's cheek. To me, you are. Jesse's breath caught, and for a moment Silas thought he might bolt. But instead, Jesse leaned into the touch, his eyes fluttering closed. I want to believe that, Jesse whispered. I want to believe I can be precious to someone. Then believe it. Silas's thumb traced Jesse's cheekbone, careful of the bruise. Because it's true. When Jesse opened his eyes, there was something new in them. Not just hope, but hunger, want. The same desire that had been building in Silas since the day they met. Silas, Jesse breathed, I think I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me. I know. Silas moved closer, close enough that he could feel Jesse's breath on his lips. Because I'm falling for you too, and I'm just as terrified. The space between them felt electric, charged with possibility. Jesse's eyes dropped to Silas's mouth, then back up, asking a question he didn't have words for. Not yet, Silas said gently. When I kiss you for the first time, I want you to be sure. Completely sure, not confused or scared or hurting, just wanting me the way I want you. Jesse nodded, looking disappointed, but also relieved. How did you get so patient? Years of practice being alone. Silas stepped back, putting safe distance between them. And knowing that you're worth the wait. He'd gone into town for supplies, and at the general store, he'd overheard two men talking. Heard the Fairmont boy ran off, disgraced his whole family. What did he do? You know. A meaningful pause. One of those. His pa tried to beat it out of him, but the boy up and vanished one night. Good riddance, if you ask me. Silas's hands had clenched around the bag of grain he was carrying, his jaw tight. He knew that story, had lived a version of it himself, years ago in a different town with a different name. That night, he'd lain awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Jesse, about the fear in those green eyes, about what it took to run from everything you knew, with nothing but the clothes on your back and hope that somewhere, anywhere, you might be safe. The next morning, when Jesse arrived at the stable, Silas was already there, waiting. We need to talk, Silas said. Jesse went pale. If this is about my work, I can do better, I promise. It's not about your work, Silas gestured to a hay bale. Sit. Jesse sat, looking like he expected to be struck at any moment. Silas hated that look, hated that someone had taught this young man to expect pain from every interaction. I heard some talk in town, Silas said carefully. About you. about why you left home." Jesse's face went from pale to ashen. He stood abruptly. "I'll leave. I'll pack my things and be gone by nightfall. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring trouble." "Sit down," Silas said firmly. Jesse froze, caught between flight and obedience. Silas softened his voice. "Please, sit down. You're not in trouble." Slowly, Jesse lowered himself back onto the hay bale. His hands were shaking, and he wouldn't meet Silas's eyes. "I'm going to tell you something," Silas said. "Something I've never told anyone here. And then you're going to understand why I'm the last person who'd judge you." Jesse's eyes flicked up, cautious and confused. "I'm like you," Silas said simply. "I ran too, 10 years ago, from a town that would have killed me if I'd stayed, because I made the mistake of loving someone I shouldn't have, another man." Jesse's breath caught. I understand what you're running from," Silas continued. "The fear, the shame they tried to make you feel, the violence. I've been where you are, and I need you to know you're safe here, with me." Tears welled in Jesse's eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I see you, Jesse, really see you, and I can't stand to watch you carry that fear alone." The tears spilled over, and Jesse scrubbed at them angrily. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to." "Don't apologize for crying," Silas said gently. He moved closer, close enough to touch but not touching. "You've earned those tears. God knows you've been through enough." Jesse sobbed once, harsh and broken. "I'm so tired. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of pretending I'm something I'm not." "Then stop running," Silas said. "Stay here. Let me help you." "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Silas reached out slowly, giving Jesse time to pull away, and cupped his face. Jesse flinched but didn't retreat, and Silas's thumb caught a tear sliding down his cheek. "I know enough," Silas said. "I know you're brave, even when you don't feel it. I know you're stronger than you think, and I know—" He hesitated, then pushed forward. "I know that from the moment I saw you, I haven't been able to look away." Jesse's eyes widened. "Silas, I'm not asking for anything," Silas said quickly. "I'm just telling you the truth. You're safe with me. Whatever you need, however long it takes. I'm here." Jesse stared at him, tears still streaming down his face. Then, so quietly, Silas almost didn't hear it. "What if I need more than safety?" Silas's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "What if I—" Jesse's voice broke. "What if I want the same thing you do? What if I've been alone so long that I don't remember what it's like to be wanted, and I—" He sobbed again. "God, I'm so broken I don't even know how to say this." "You're not broken," Silas said fiercely. "Jesse, look at me." Jesse raised his tear-stained face, and Silas saw everything there. The longing, the fear, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd found someone who understood. "Tell me what you want," Silas said. "Use whatever words you have. I'll understand." Jesse took a shaking breath. "I want to know what it's like to be touched by someone who doesn't want to hurt me, to be wanted for who I am, not who they're trying to make me into. I want—" His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I want you." The confession hung in the air between them, fragile and terrifying. Silas felt something fierce surge through his chest. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because once we cross this line, there's no going back." "I'm sure," Jesse said, though his voice shook. "I'm terrified, but I'm sure." Silas moved slowly, carefully. He leaned in, giving Jesse every chance to change his mind, and pressed his lips to Jesse's forehead, then his temple, then finally the corner of his mouth. Jesse made a small, wounded sound. His hands came up to clutch at Silas's shirt. "More," Jesse whispered. "Please, I need more." Silas pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "If it gets to be too much, you tell me. Promise me." "I promise." Then Silas kissed him. Really kissed him. His mouth moved over Jesse's with skill and hunger, showing Jesse exactly what a kiss could be when it came from desire instead of violence. Jesse gasped against his lips, and Silas swallowed the sound. His hands moved to Jesse's waist, pulling him closer, and Jesse came willingly, pressing against him like he'd been waiting his whole life for this. When they finally broke apart, Jesse was crying again, but these tears were different. Not pain, but something else, something that looked like release. "It's okay," Silas murmured, kissing the tears away. "You're okay." "It's so much," Jesse sobbed. "I didn't know it could feel like this." "Like what?" "Safe, and wanted, and terrifying all at once." Jesse buried his face in Silas's neck. "Don't stop. Please don't stop." "I won't," Silas promised. "But we're going to take this slow. You've waited this long for something good. You deserve to savor every moment." Over the following weeks, Silas kept that promise. He taught Jesse that intimacy didn't have to be rushed or rough. That pleasure could be drawn out, savored. That crying during moments of overwhelming sensation wasn't weakness, it was release. And Jesse slowly learned to trust, not just Silas, but himself, his own body, his own desires, his own worth. But the ranch wasn't a sanctuary. The other hands started to notice the way Silas and Jesse looked at each other, the way they'd disappear together, the way Jesse had stopped flinching, stopped looking like a hunted animal. It was inevitable that someone would say something. It happened on a Saturday night. Most of the hands were in the bunkhouse, playing cards and passing around a bottle. Jesse had excused himself early, saying he was tired. Silas had waited a few minutes before following, not wanting to be obvious, but as he passed the bunkhouse window, he heard his name. "Drummond's gone soft, all because of that pretty boy." "You think they're—" "I know they are. Saw them in the barn last week. Unnatural, that's what it is." Silas's jaw tightened. He could walk away, pretend he hadn't heard, or he could go in there and make it clear that anyone who had a problem with Jesse would have to go through him first. He chose the second option. The conversation died the instant he stepped through the door. Every eye turned to him, and Silas saw a mixture of guilt, curiosity, and hostility. "Something you boys want to say to me?" Silas asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The man who'd been speaking, a surly hand named Cobb, stood up. "We're just concerned about the ranch's reputation. Having men like you and that boy around, it reflects poorly on all of us." "Men like us," Silas repeated. "You mean men who do our work and mind our own business?" "You know what I mean." "I do." Silas stepped further into the room. "And here's what you need to understand. What Jesse and I do on our own time is none of your concern. You have a problem with that. You can take it up with me. But I promise you, that's a fight you'll lose." Cobb puffed up, trying to look tough. "You threatening me, Drummond?" "No, I'm making you a promise. Jesse's under my protection. Anyone who hurts him, who makes him feel unsafe, who so much as looks at him wrong, they answer to me." The room was silent. Silas was the biggest man on the ranch, and his reputation as someone you didn't cross was well earned. "Now," Silas said, "if there are no other concerns, I suggest you all get back to your card game." He turned and walked out, his heart pounding. He'd just made their relationship public knowledge. There would be consequences. But as he made his way to the small cabin behind the stable where Jesse was waiting, Silas found he didn't care. Jesse was worth any consequence. He found Jesse sitting on the cabin's single bed, his face pale. "I heard shouting," Jesse said. "What happened?" Silas closed the door behind him and crossed to the bed. He sat down beside Jesse and took his hand. "They know about us," he said simply, "and I made it clear that anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me." Jesse's eyes widened. "Silas, you didn't have to—" "Yes, I did." Silas squeezed his hand. "I'm done hiding, done pretending. I want everyone to know that you're mine, if you'll have me." Jesse's eyes filled with tears. "You'd risk everything for me?" "Everything," Silas confirmed, "because you're worth it." Jesse launched himself at Silas, wrapping his arms around his neck and kissing him with desperate intensity. Silas caught him, holding him close as Jesse climbed into his lap. "Show me," Jesse gasped between kisses. "Show me I'm worth it. Show me what it means to be yours." Silas pulled back, searching Jesse's face. "Are you sure? This is fast, and I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm sure." Jesse's hands framed Silas's face. "I've never been more sure of anything. I want this. I want you. I want to know what it's like to be loved." Silas's control, carefully maintained for weeks, finally snapped. He kissed Jesse hard, pouring everything he felt into it. Jesse moaned, his body arching into Silas's touch. "Tell me if it's too much," Silas said, his voice rough. "Tell me if you need me to stop." "Don't stop," Jesse breathed. "Whatever happens, don't stop." Silas laid Jesse back on the bed, covering his body with his own. Jesse's hands were everywhere, clutching at Silas's shoulders, his back, tangling in his hair. And when Silas's mouth moved to Jesse's neck, the younger man cried out. "Yes," Jesse gasped. "Yes, please, more." Silas took his time, learning every inch of Jesse's body, finding the places that made him gasp, the touches that made him whimper. And when Jesse started to tremble, overwhelmed by sensation, Silas didn't stop. "I can't," Jesse sobbed, his body shaking. "It's too much, I can't." "You can," Silas murmured against his skin. "You can take this. You can take everything I want to give you." Jesse cried harder, tears streaming down his face as Silas continued his exploration. His body didn't know what to do with pleasure this intense, this all-consuming. Every nerve ending was on fire, and Jesse felt like he was drowning in sensation. "Silas," he sobbed. "Silas, please." "I know," Silas said, raising his head to look at Jesse. His eyes were dark with desire, but also tender. "I know it's overwhelming, but these tears, Jesse, they're not fear. They're freedom." Jesse stared up at him through tear-blurred vision. "I don't understand." "You've spent so long being told that what you want is wrong," Silas said, his hand gentle as he wiped Jesse's tears. "That you're shameful, broken, disgusting. And now I'm showing you that it's not. That what we're doing is beautiful. Your body doesn't know how to process that yet, so it cries." He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to Jesse's lips. "But crying won't make me stop, because I'm going to keep showing you, keep proving to you, that you deserve this, that you deserve to feel good, to be wanted, to be loved." Jesse sobbed again, but this time he understood. These tears were washing away years of shame, years of fear. With every touch, every kiss, Silas was rewriting the story Jesse had been told about himself. "Don't stop," Jesse whispered. "Please, Silas, don't ever stop." "Never," Silas promised, and he proceeded to show Jesse exactly what he meant. The night stretched on, filled with Jesse's sobs and gasps, and finally, breathless laughter as he discovered what joy felt like. Silas held him through all of it, patient and passionate, demanding and gentle all at once. And when Jesse finally fell asleep, exhausted and sated and tear-stained, Silas held him close and made a silent vow. He would protect this man, would fight for him, would show him every day that he was worthy of love, no matter what it cost. The morning after, Jesse woke to sunlight streaming through the cabin window and Silas's arms wrapped around him. For a moment, he lay still, hardly daring to breathe. His body ached in unfamiliar ways, and his face felt tight from dried tears. But underneath it all was something else, something warm and solid and real. Peace. He turned carefully in Silas's embrace, studying the older man's face. In sleep, Silas looked younger. The hard lines around his mouth had softened, and there was a vulnerability there that he never showed when awake. Jesse raised a tentative hand to trace the curve of Silas's jaw. He'd spent hours last night learning this face, these features, learning what it felt like to touch someone and have them lean into it instead of flinching away. Silas's eyes opened, immediately alert. Then, seeing Jesse, they softened. "Morning," Silas murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning." Jesse felt heat rise in his cheeks, suddenly shy despite everything they'd shared. "I didn't mean to wake you." "I'm glad you did." Silas pulled him closer, and Jesse went willingly, pressing his face into Silas's chest. How are you feeling? Jesse considered the question. Sore, yes. Overwhelmed, definitely. But also lighter than he'd felt in years. Good, he said finally. Really good. Silas's hand moved in slow circles on his back. Any regrets? No. Jesse raised his head to look at him. None. You. Not a single one. Silas cupped Jesse's face, his thumb tracing Jesse's cheekbone. Last night was... He paused, searching for words. You were incredible. Jesse felt tears prick at his eyes again. I cried through most of it. I know. Silas's expression was tender. And it was beautiful. Every tear, every sob, every moment you let yourself feel instead of running. That took more courage than you know. Jesse buried his face in Silas's neck, breathing in his scent. I was so scared it would be like before, that even with you it would hurt. And did it? Jesse thought about the night before, the overwhelming sensation, the tears, the moments when he'd thought he couldn't take any more. But hurt? No. It had been intense, consuming, transformative, but not painful. No, he whispered. It was perfect. They lay together in comfortable silence until the sound of the ranch stir forced them to face the day. As Jesse dressed, he caught Silas watching him with an intensity that made his breath catch. What? Jesse asked. Just memorizing, Silas said. In case this is a dream. Jesse crossed to him, taking his face in both hands. It's not a dream. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Silas pulled him into a kiss that quickly deepened, his hands gripping Jesse's hips. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas rested his forehead against Jesse's. We need to get to work, he said, though he made no move to let go. I know. Jesse didn't move either. But I want one more minute. Just one more minute where it's just us and nothing else matters. Silas gave him that minute, and then another, and another, until finally, reluctantly, they had to face the world outside their cabin. The whispers started immediately. Jesse felt eyes on him as he walked to the stable, heard conversations stop when he passed. He kept his head down, focusing on his work, trying to ignore the weight of judgment pressing down on him. It was worse when Silas wasn't nearby. The other hands grew bolder then, making comments just loud enough for Jesse to hear. Unnatural, disgusting, should be run out of town. Jesse's hands shook as he mucked out the stalls, his old fear rising up to choke him. This was what he'd been running from, this hatred, this disgust. And now, he'd brought it down on Silas too. He was so lost in his spiraling thoughts that he didn't hear someone approach until a hand grabbed his shoulder. Jesse spun, stumbling back, and found himself face to face with Cobb. Your boyfriend ain't here to protect you now, Cobb said, his breath reeking of whiskey despite the early hour. Think you're special? Think you can corrupt good men with your I'd finish that sentence real careful like. Silas's voice cut through the air like a whip. Cobb's face went pale. He let go of Jesse and stepped back. I was just leaving. Silas moved between Jesse and Cobb, a wall of muscle and barely controlled rage. And if I catch you near him again, if I even hear that you've spoken to him, we're going to have a problem. Understood? Cobb nodded quickly and scurried away. Silas turned to Jesse, his expression softening immediately. You all right? Jesse nodded, though his heart was still racing. He didn't hurt me, but he scared you. Silas pulled Jesse into his arms, not caring who might see. I'm sorry. I should have been here. You can't be with me every second, Jesse said, though he clung to Silas's shirt. And I need to learn to handle this on my own. No. Silas's voice was firm. You don't have to handle anything alone. Not anymore. That evening, as they sat together in their cabin, Jesse brought up what had been weighing on his mind all day. Maybe we should be more careful, he said. Not so obvious about what we are to each other. Silas looked at him sharply. You want to hide? I want you to be safe, Jesse said. If the boss finds out, you could lose your job. And it's my fault. Stop. Silas took Jesse's hands. First of all, Cartwright already knows. Half the ranch knows. And second, I don't care. I meant what I said last night. I'm done hiding. But No. Silas squeezed his hands. Jesse, I spent 10 years hiding. 10 years pretending to be someone I'm not, keeping everyone at arm's length because I was terrified of being found out. And then you came along and made me realize that living in fear isn't living at all. Jesse felt tears well up. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You're not. Silas pulled him close. You're the reason I finally have something worth fighting for. 2 days later, the summons came. Cartwright wanted to see Silas in his office immediately. Jesse's stomach dropped when he heard. I'm coming with you, he said. No. Silas shook his head. This is between me and him. It's about me. I should be there. Silas cupped Jesse's face. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Jesse nodded, though fear clawed at his chest. He watched Silas walk toward the main house, his shoulders squared, ready for battle. The weight was agony. Jesse tried to work, but his hands shook too badly to be useful. He paced the stable, checking the window every few seconds, his mind conjuring increasingly terrible scenarios. When Silas finally returned, his face was grim. What happened? Jesse asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He gave me a choice. Silas's jaw was tight. Fire you, or we both leave. Jesse felt the floor drop out from under him. Silas, so we're leaving. Silas said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Tonight. No. Jesse shook his head frantically. No, you can't throw away everything for me. This job, this ranch, it's your whole life. It was my whole life, Silas corrected. Before you. And I choose you, Jesse. I will always choose you. Jesse burst into tears. You're insane. You barely know me, and you're willing to give up everything. I know enough. Silas pulled him close. I know that you make me feel alive for the first time in years. I know that when I look at you, I see my future. And I know that a job, a ranch, none of it means anything if I can't be with you. Jesse sobbed into his chest. Where will we go? What will we do? We'll figure it out. Silas's voice was steady, certain. There's a whole world out there. We'll find our place in it. They packed that night, working in silence. Jesse couldn't stop crying, torn between overwhelming love for this man who'd sacrifice everything for him, and crushing guilt at being the cause of that sacrifice. As they led their horses out of the stable under cover of darkness, Jesse stopped. I'm scared, he admitted. Me too. Silas took his hand. But I'm more scared of living without you. Jesse looked up at the stars, bright and endless above them. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that when it gets hard, when you start regretting this choice, you'll tell me. Don't just suffer in silence. Silas turned to face him fully. I won't regret it, but I promise if I'm struggling, I'll talk to you. That's what partners do. Partners, Jesse repeated, testing the word. He liked how it sounded. I like that. They rode through the night, putting distance between themselves and Bighorn Ranch. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they stopped to rest the horses by a creek. Jesse dismounted stiffly, every muscle protesting. Silas was immediately at his side, helping him down. You're hurting, Silas said, concerned. Just sore from riding. Jesse stretched, trying to work out the kinks. I'll be fine. Silas studied him for a moment, then pulled him close. We're going to make this work. I promise you that. Jesse leaned into him, letting Silas's solid presence ground him. I believe you. They settled by the creek, and Jesse found himself talking, really talking, for the first time in his life. He told Silas about his childhood, about discovering what he was, and the terror that came with it, about his father's fists and his mother's tears. About running in the middle of the night, leaving behind everything he'd ever known. Silas listened without judgment, his arm around Jesse's shoulders, occasionally pressing kisses to his hair. I'm sorry, Silas said when Jesse finally fell silent. I'm so sorry you went through that. It led me to you, Jesse said, so maybe it was worth it. You shouldn't have had to suffer to find happiness. Maybe not, but I did, and now I have you. Jesse turned to look up at him. That's enough. Silas kissed him, soft and sweet. You deserve so much more than enough. You deserve everything." They spent the day resting, planning their next move. Silas suggested heading west, toward California. "I hear there are places out there where people like us can live more openly," he said. "Might not be perfect, but it's got to be better than constantly hiding." "California," Jesse repeated. "I've never been that far west." "Neither have I. We'll be discovering it together." As the sun began to set, they remounted and continued their journey. The days blurred together, a rhythm of riding and resting, sleeping under the stars and waking with the dawn. And every night, in whatever shelter they found, Silas would show Jesse again what it meant to be loved. Sometimes gentle, sometimes demanding, but always patient when Jesse's emotions overwhelmed him. "I can't," Jesse sobbed one night, his body trembling from sensation. "It's too much. I can't take it." "You can," Silas murmured, not stopping. "And you will, because crying won't make me stop, remember? I'm going to keep showing you how good this can be until you believe it." And Jesse did cry, overwhelmed by pleasure and emotion and the sheer intensity of being known so completely. But underneath the tears was joy, pure, unfettered joy. They'd been traveling for 2 weeks when they came across a small town called Silver Creek. It was nestled in a valley, surrounded by pine forests, far enough from civilization that news traveled slowly. "What do you think?" Silas asked as they surveyed the quiet main street. "It's beautiful," Jesse said, and it was. The town had a peaceful quality that immediately put him at ease. They found lodging at a boarding house run by an older woman named Mrs. Chen. She looked them over with sharp eyes, but asked no questions when Silas requested a single room. "You boys looking for work?" she asked as she handed over the key. "Yes, ma'am," Silas said. "Know of any opportunities?" "The Morrison Ranch, just outside town. Widow Morrison's been looking for hands since her husband passed. She's a fair employer." The next morning, they rode out to meet Mrs. Morrison. She was a sturdy woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "I can offer both of you work," she said after hearing their experience. "And there's a cabin on the property that's been sitting empty. You'd have to share it, but—" "That would be perfect," Silas said quickly. Mrs. Morrison gave them a long look. "I don't pry into my workers' personal lives. All I care about is whether you do your jobs. Everything else is between you and God." Jesse felt tears prick at his eyes. Acceptance. Simple. Uncomplicated acceptance. "Thank you," he managed. "Thank you so much." The cabin was small but well maintained. One room with a fireplace, a bed, and windows that looked out over the valley. As Jesse stepped inside, he felt something settle in his chest. Home. This was home. Silas came up behind him, wrapping his arms around Jesse's waist. "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect." Jesse leaned back against him. "I think we're going to be happy here." "Yeah," Silas said softly. "Yeah, I think we are." They settled into a routine at the Morrison Ranch. The work was hard but satisfying, and Mrs. Morrison was true to her word about not prying. The other hands, 2 older men named Pete and Samuel, treated Jesse and Silas with friendly indifference. Jesse found himself relaxing in ways he never had before. The constant fear that had been his companion for so long gradually faded. He laughed more, smiled more, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved happiness. And Silas was there through all of it, patient when Jesse had bad days, celebrating the good ones, teaching Jesse that love didn't have to be complicated or painful, that it could be as simple as working side by side during the day and falling asleep in each other's arms at night. One evening, about 2 months after they'd arrived in Silver Creek, Jesse and Silas sat on their cabin porch watching the sunset. Jesse was tucked against Silas's side, content and drowsy. "I've been thinking," Silas said. "About what?" "About how different my life is now. How different I am." He squeezed Jesse closer. "A year ago, I was just going through the motions, working, sleeping, existing, but not really living. And now I have you, and that's made all the difference." Jesse felt tears well up, but they were good tears, happy tears. "You saved me," he said. "You know that, right? When I came to Bighorn Ranch, I was ready to give up. And then you saw me, really saw me, and you didn't look away. How could I?" Silas pressed a kiss to his hair. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Jesse turned to look up at him. "I love you. I don't think I've said that enough, but I do. I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too." Silas cupped his face. "And you don't ever have to be scared. Not of this. Not of us." Jesse kissed him, pouring everything he felt into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas stood and pulled Jesse to his feet. "Come on," he said, leading Jesse toward the cabin. "Where are we going?" Silas grinned. "I'm going to remind you exactly how much I love you. And if you cry, well, crying won't make you stop," Jesse finished, laughing through his tears. "Never," Silas promised. "I'm never going to stop loving you." Inside the cabin, Silas made good on his promise. He took his time, learning Jesse's body all over again, finding new ways to make him gasp and tremble. And when Jesse did cry, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion, Silas kissed the tears away and kept going. "You're so beautiful like this," Silas murmured, "falling apart in my arms, trusting me to put you back together." Jesse sobbed, clinging to him. "I trust you. I trust you with everything. And I'll never betray that trust." Silas's hands were everywhere, reverent and demanding all at once. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you how loved you are." Jesse believed him. In this moment, wrapped in Silas's arms, his body singing with pleasure and his heart full to bursting, Jesse finally understood what it meant to be whole. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Jesse's head on Silas's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Tell me something," Jesse said sleepily. "Something you've never told anyone else." Silas was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on Jesse's back. "Before you, I'd convinced myself I didn't need anyone. That being alone was safer. And then you stumbled into my life, all wide eyes and trembling hands, and destroyed every defense I'd built. Was that a good thing? The best thing?" Silas's arms tightened around him. "You made me realize that the walls I'd built weren't protecting me. They were just keeping me lonely." Jesse pressed a kiss to Silas's chest. "I'm glad I destroyed them." "Me too." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, safe in their little cabin far from anyone who would judge them. The next morning, Jesse woke early. He slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Silas, and stepped outside to watch the sunrise. The valley spread out before him, beautiful and peaceful. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear cattle lowing and birds singing their morning songs. The air smelled of pine and morning dew. Jesse wrapped his arms around himself, feeling the cool morning air on his skin. 6 months ago, he'd been running, terrified, alone, convinced he'd never find a place where he could just exist without fear. And now he was here, in a place where people didn't ask questions, with a man who loved him not, despite what he was, but because of it, doing work that mattered, building a life that was truly his. "Couldn't sleep?" Silas's voice came from behind him. Jesse turned to find Silas in the doorway, shirtless and rumpled from sleep. "Just thinking." Silas crossed to him, wrapping his arms around Jesse from behind. "About what?" "About how far I've come, how different everything is now." Jesse leaned back against him. "I used to think I'd spend my whole life running, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. And now I want to stay, here, with you, build something real." Silas pressed a kiss to his neck. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll build a life here, together." Jesse turned in his arms. "You really mean that? You're not going to wake up one day and regret giving up everything for me?" "Never." Silas's eyes were fierce. "Jesse, you need to understand something. You didn't make me give up everything. You gave me everything. A reason to live instead of just exist. Hope for the future. Love. You gave me love. Jesse felt tears stream down his face. I'm going to cry, he warned. Silas smiled. That rare, beautiful smile that transformed his whole face. I know, but crying won't make me stop loving you. Nothing will. He kissed Jesse as the sun crested the mountains, bathing them both in golden light. And Jesse, who'd spent so long believing he was broken and wrong and unlovable, finally understood the truth. He was none of those things. He was simply a man who'd found another man who saw him, really saw him, and chose to love him anyway. The next few weeks brought challenges Jesse hadn't anticipated. While Mrs. Morrison and most of the town proved accepting, there were still whispers, stares in the general store, conversations that stopped when Jesse entered a room. One afternoon, Jesse was in town picking up supplies when he overheard two women talking on the store porch. Those two men at the Morrison place. You know what they are, don't you? I've heard rumors. Unnatural, if you ask me. Mrs. Morrison should run them off. It's not right having that kind of thing so close to decent folk. Jesse's hands trembled as he loaded the supplies onto the wagon. The old fear tried to claw its way back up his throat. Maybe they'd been wrong to think they could have a normal life here. Maybe nowhere was safe. He was still shaken when he returned to the ranch. Silas took one look at his face and pulled him into their cabin. What happened? Silas asked, his hands gentle on Jesse's shoulders. Jesse told him about the women, about the whispers he'd been hearing. Maybe we should move on, find somewhere more remote where... No. Silas's voice was firm. We're not running anymore, remember? We're building a life here. But what? What? Silas cupped Jesse's face, forcing him to meet his eyes. Talk. Let them talk. Stare. Let them stare. We're not doing anything wrong, Jesse. We're just living. Loving each other, working hard, being good neighbors. If that offends people, that's their problem, not ours. Jesse felt tears well up. I'm just so tired of fighting, of always having to prove we deserve to exist. I know. Silas pulled him close. But you don't have to fight alone. We're in this together, and for every person who judges us, there's someone like Mrs. Morrison who sees us as human beings deserving of respect. Jesse buried his face in Silas's chest, breathing in his familiar scent. What if I'm not strong enough? You're stronger than you know. Silas's hand moved in soothing circles on his back. You survived your father. You survived running. You survived everything life has thrown at you. A few small-minded gossips are nothing compared to what you've already endured. Jesse pulled back to look at him. How do you stay so calm about it? I'm not calm, Silas admitted. Inside, I'm furious that anyone would make you feel less than. But I learned a long time ago that anger without purpose just eats you alive. So I channel it into building something they can't tear down. Like what? Like us, like this life we're creating. Every day we stay here, every day we show them we're not ashamed. We're proving them wrong. We're showing them that love is love, no matter what form it takes. Jesse felt something shift inside him. Silas was right. Running wouldn't solve anything. They'd just encounter the same prejudice somewhere else. But if they stayed, if they built something real here, they could prove that they belong just as much as anyone. Okay, Jesse said. We stay, we build our life, and we don't let them make us feel ashamed. Silas smiled, that rare, beautiful smile. That's my boy. The next Sunday, Jesse made a decision. When the town held its weekly market in the square, instead of avoiding it like he usually did, he went. And he went with Silas. They walked through the market together, not hiding, not pretending. Silas's hand rested at the small of Jesse's back, a gentle claim that anyone watching could see. Jesse kept his head high, even as he felt eyes on them. Some people did stare, some whispered, but others, like the baker and the blacksmith and old Mr. Chen from the boarding house, greeted them warmly, treated them like any other couple. See, Silas murmured as they walked. Not everyone is against us. Jesse squeezed his hand. You're right. I've been so focused on the people who hate us that I forgot to notice the ones who don't. That evening, as they worked on framing their house, Pete and Samuel came by with a jug of whiskey and offered to help. "Figure you boys could use some extra hands," Pete said gruffly. "This is a big project." Jesse felt tears prick at his eyes. "You don't have to." "We know we don't have to," Samuel interrupted. "We want to. You're good people, and good people deserve help when they're building something." Over the next few months, their house slowly took shape. With the help of Pete, Samuel, and even Mrs. Morrison on occasion, the walls went up, the roof went on, and the inside began to look like a home. Jesse threw himself into the work with an enthusiasm that surprised even him. Every nail he drove, every board he placed, felt like an act of defiance. They were building something permanent, something that declared they weren't going anywhere. One evening, as they sat on their nearly finished porch watching the sunset, Jesse rested his head on Silas's shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" Jesse asked quietly. "Given up everything for me?" Silas was quiet for a moment. "You want the truth?" Jesse's heart clenched. "Yes. Sometimes I think about Bighorn Ranch, about the life I had there, the routine, the familiarity." He paused and Jesse held his breath. "And then I look at you, at this life we're building together, and I realize I didn't give up everything. I gave up a half-life of loneliness and fear. What I got in return is everything that matters." Jesse turned to look at him, tears streaming down his face. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I know the feeling." Silas wiped away Jesse's tears. "But you don't have to be scared. Not anymore. We've built something real here, something lasting." Jesse kissed him, pouring all his love and gratitude into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas stood and pulled Jesse to his feet. "Come on," he said, leading Jesse toward their tent. Even though the house was nearly done, they'd been sleeping in the tent until the bedroom was completely finished. "I want to show you something." Inside the tent, Silas lit a lantern and turned to face Jesse. "I've been waiting for the right time to do this," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a simple silver band. "It's not much, but—" Jesse's breath caught. "Silas, I know we can't get married. Not legally, not in any way that matters to the law." Silas took Jesse's hand. "But I want you to know that in my heart, you're my husband, my partner, my family. This ring is a promise that I'm yours, now and always." Jesse was crying openly now. "I don't have anything to give you. You've given me everything." Silas slipped the ring onto Jesse's finger. "You gave me a reason to live instead of just exist. You gave me hope. You gave me love. That's more than I ever thought I'd have." Jesse threw his arms around Silas's neck, sobbing into his shoulder. "Yes, yes, I'll be yours, forever." Silas held him tight, and Jesse felt the last pieces of his broken heart slot back into place. He was whole. Finally, completely whole. That night, Silas made love to him with a tenderness that took Jesse's breath away. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a vow. And when Jesse cried from the overwhelming beauty of it all, Silas kissed away his tears and whispered, "Crying won't make me stop loving you. Nothing will." The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Jesse's life. They moved into their finished house, turning the empty rooms into a real home. Jesse planted a garden. Silas built a barn for their first 2 horses. They worked during the day and fell asleep in each other's arms at night. Mrs. Morrison came by one afternoon with a housewarming gift, a quilt she'd made herself. "Every home needs a quilt made with love," she said, pressing it into Jesse's hands. "You boys have built something special here. I'm proud of you." Jesse hugged her. This woman who'd shown them kindness when they needed it most. "Thank you for everything, for giving us a chance." She patted his cheek. "Everyone deserves a chance at happiness. I'm just glad you found yours." Mrs. Morrison proved to be more than just an employer. She became a friend, occasionally joining them for dinner and sharing stories of her late husband. She never asked about their relationship, but the knowing look she gave them made it clear she understood and approved. Pete and Samuel, the other ranch hands, became something like friends too. They taught Jesse the finer points of cattle management and shared their whiskey on cold nights. If they knew or suspected what Jesse and Silas were to each other, they never said a word. Jesse's nightmares became less frequent. There were still bad days, moments when the past would rear up and threaten to pull him under. But Silas was always there, steady and patient, reminding Jesse that he was safe now. And the good days far outnumbered the bad. One spring evening, as they sat on their porch watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk, Silas took Jesse's hand. "I've been saving my wages," he said. "We've been saving." Jesse looked at him curiously. "For what?" "Land. I talked to Mrs. Morrison. She's willing to sell us 20 acres on the far edge of her property. We could build our own place, something that's truly ours." Jesse's breath caught. Our own land. Our own land. Our own house. We could raise horses, maybe some cattle. Build something that lasts. Tears filled Jesse's eyes. "You want to put down permanent roots? With me?" "Jesse." Silas turned to face him fully. "There's no one else I'd rather build a life with. You're it for me. You're my home." Jesse launched himself at Silas, wrapping his arms around his neck. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Silas laughed, catching him easily. "You haven't even heard how much money we've saved." "I don't care." Jesse pulled back to look at him. "I don't care if it takes us 10 years to build a house. I don't care if we have to live in a tent while we do it. I just want to build a future with you." Silas kissed him, deep and thorough. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against Jesse's. "I was so lost before you," Silas said quietly. "So convinced that I'd spend my whole life alone. And then you showed up terrified and trembling, and gave me a reason to hope again." "You saved me first," Jesse reminded him. "You saw past the fear to who I really was. We saved each other." Silas's hands framed Jesse's face. "And now we get to build something beautiful together." Jesse felt tears stream down his face, but they were happy tears. The kind of tears that came from overwhelming joy rather than pain. "I'm crying again," he said with a watery laugh. Silas grinned. "I know, but crying won't make me stop planning our future. Nothing will." They talked late into the night about their plans, the kind of house they'd build, where they'd put the barn, how many horses they'd start with, every detail bringing their shared dream into sharper focus. And when they finally went to bed, Silas showed Jesse once again what he meant when he said nothing would make him stop. He loved Jesse thoroughly, patiently, passionately. And when Jesse cried from the overwhelming intensity of it all, Silas kissed every tear and kept going. "You're mine," Silas murmured against Jesse's skin, "and I'm never letting you go." "Promise?" Jesse gasped. "I promise. For as long as you'll have me." "Forever then," Jesse managed before words became impossible. Later, as they lay tangled together, Jesse traced patterns on Silas's chest. "Tell me something," Jesse said. "When you first saw me, what did you think?" Silas was quiet for a moment. "I thought you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, and the most breakable. I wanted to protect you from everything that had ever hurt you. And now I know you're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. You're not breakable, Jesse. You're resilient, and beautiful, and mine." Jesse smiled against his chest. "Yours," he agreed. "Always yours." As spring turned to summer, they broke ground on their new property. With Mrs. Morrison's blessing and the help of Pete and Samuel, they began building their house. It was slow, backbreaking work, but every nail driven and every board raised felt like a promise kept. Jesse had never been happier, working side by side with Silas, building something that would last. He felt truly alive for the first time in his life. One evening, as they sat on what would eventually be their porch, surveying their progress, Jesse leaned against Silas's shoulder. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. for seeing something worth loving when I couldn't see it myself, for teaching me that I deserve happiness. Silas pulled him closer. You never have to thank me for loving you. It's the easiest thing I've ever done. Jesse turned to look at him. I used to think I was broken beyond repair, that the things that happened to me had destroyed something fundamental inside me. And now I know I wasn't broken. I was just waiting for someone who could see past the scars to who I really am, waiting for you. Silas kissed him softly. I'm glad I found you, or you found me. However it happened, I'm grateful for it. As the sun set over their unfinished house, Jesse felt a peace settle over him that he'd never known before. The road had been hard, full of fear and pain and struggle, but it had led him here, to this place, to this man, to a future he'd never dared to dream of. And when Silas pulled him to his feet and led him to their tent, making love to him under the stars while Jesse cried from the sheer overwhelming beauty of it all, Jesse understood that this was what happiness felt like. It felt like home. It felt like being seen and known and loved anyway. It felt like Silas's arms around him, his voice in Jesse's ear saying, "Crying won't make me stop. I'm never going to stop loving you." And Jesse believed him, finally, completely, believed that he was worthy of being loved. The trembling stable boy and the lonely giant had found each other in the vast wilderness of the West, and together they'd built something neither of them had dared to hope for. A home, a future, a love that would last all their days. As the stars came out one by one, Jesse Fairmont and Silas Drummond lay tangled together in their tent, two souls who'd been lost and broken, now whole and found, together, always together, and nothing, not fear or shame or the judgment of small minds, would ever tear them apart. This was their beginning, their forever, their home.